Hello and welcome to LionWing Talks, a weekly show where we discuss all things LionWing, tabletop games, Japanese games, and localization. I'm Brad the Hailstorm, founder and president of LionWing. This is episode 33 for November 3rd, 2021. I can't believe it's November already. Welcome back to another episode. We had some big stuff happen over this past week, in which we're going to talk about tonight. This will probably be an abridged show. Last week was also a shorter show. I guess some people would look at last week's show and see the runtime of 58 minutes or 59 minutes and think, no, Bradley, that's not a short show exactly. But when you look back at some of our previous shows, you would definitely begin to see why I am calling last week's show a short show. This week's show will probably be shorter just because there's not a lot to talk about other than Picaresque Roman. So, let's jump into our project updates and get right to it. For starters, let's talk about Wild Hunt Festival first. I finally did hear back from our editor, Eli. I was getting a little worried, as I mentioned in last week's show, and I reached out to him again and said, hey, just making sure everything's okay. Basically saying, I hope you're still alive. And he got back to me and said, hey, yeah, I'm alive, but going through some stuff right now. So bear with me, essentially. He said more, but that's all I'll say. And so when he gets to DLC 2, I'm not quite sure. Hopefully it's soon, but I can't even begin to put a timeline on it at this point. Speaking of Wild Hunt Festival, you may have seen that we retweeted something over on Twitter today from Ramo and Liner Notes. So go check out our Twitter for what that might be. At LionWing Publishing is where you can find us there. So that's Wild Hunt Festival. Not a lot new there. Gun and Gun. The saga continues. So still waiting. We are still waiting to get on the ship. Still waiting to get on the ship. So funny thing about that. We did not include on our games on the barcode. Sometimes, depending on your printer, they will require that you put on the barcode "Made in China" on it. Now, I don't think we put that on our barcode for Wild Hunt Festival, but we're not printing through the same printer as we did for Wild Hunt Festival. We're printing through the printer that we printed through for Sinome. And so I got an email, what is today? Today's Wednesday. I got an email Monday. So this was already, a couple days past when I was told the pallets would be loaded onto the boat. I got an email from the printer saying, hey, we just noticed, which is all, it's not what you want to read on a Monday morning. It's also not what you want to read when you've been essentially given the runaround by a printer for months. But nevertheless, it's what I was reading. Hey, we just noticed there's not a Made in China. There's not Made in China text on your barcode, your UPC code. And I'm like, and? And they're like, we require it because sometimes with who we ship through, it won't make it. It won't make it through customs if it doesn't have that on there. I'm like, okay, that would have been great to know. And I don't know, May, April, March, February, any of the times that you saw all of the files and you had prototypes printed and you had final files printed, and you had final files, final assets, final games sitting in front of you as you looked them over. They already went to the boat the first time. I'm so glad that they caught this now, though it's alarming that they didn't catch it the first time that the games went to the boat, because what would have happened had they not realized they messed up on the foils and needed to bring those pallets back, if these pallets got on the boat and got shipped off and they got stuck in customs because there wasn't a Made in China. So needless to say, I was already like, I probably won't use this printer again, even though I had really good experience the first time around with Sinome. I've overlooked a lot with them this time around because I'm like, it's the pandemic. Everyone kind of sucks right now. like we all are not operating the way that we used to. And so I have really been like mindful and patient about that, taking all of that into consideration. But now this is like, guys, really? we could have caught this months ago. Why are we just talking about this now? Especially because my pallets were already on the fucking boat. So I'm like, all right, what do we do about this? And he's like, so we can just put a sticker somewhere on the outside of the box that says made in China. And I'm like, okay, that sounds real easy. I'm not even sure this needed to sound like as big a deal as it sounded like, but okay, that sounds real easy. So I'm like, cool, let's do that. I mean, it's not ideal to have to go and hand slap a bunch of stickers on that many games, especially because in my mind, if they were on pallets already, they were already wrapped up for shipping. So that probably involves unwrapping them and putting stickers on. Like, okay, that's not ideal, but it's not like we're printing 10,000 copies of this game or anything. You could knock that out in a morning. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. Just send me whatever that's going to cost and give me a timeline. So that was my email at 11 a.m. on Monday. And I'm like, they usually don't get back to me after if I send an email this late into the morning, because it's well into the night at that point in China. So I'm like, all right, I'll get an email back from them in like 12 hours or so, or the following morning. What's the following morning? Tuesday morning, I get an email. Okay, yeah, no problem. I'll send you a quote. This is going to take about 8 days. Excuse me? It's going to... You meant like 8 hours, right? Or maybe even 8 minutes. I'm not sure. But we're definitely not talking more than 8 hours. So I'm like, I'm sorry, did you mean 8 days? Yeah, about 8 days. So we're already 4 days. No, this was Tuesday. 5 days past when you said my shit was going to be loaded onto a container ship. The second time, mind you. We've already done all this once before, keep in mind. So we're 5 days past that, and now you're telling me it's going to be another 8 days. So this feels like that, what's that kid song? The one that goes like, this is the song that never ends. This kind of feels like that song, but taking the embodiment of real life. So this is truly, this feels like a fever dream. It really does. I can't tell if what's happening with Gun and Gun is actually happening in the real world, or if this is all an elaborate ruse or a terrible nightmare. Unfortunately, I think this actually is the real world, and that's what is most depressing. So, Gun and Gun, getting stickers put on it that say made in China when this should have been done a long time ago, or told to us after. I mean, they looked at our assets numerous times, because that's the whole like DTP process, right? Like, you send your stuff, they look at them, they send you back digital samples, they say, hey, can you change this? Can you add that? They had us add things. They had us add things to that box. So they were looking at that box, and more specifically, they were looking at the back of the box, because we had to add something to the back of the box per their request. At no point, I guess it didn't dawn on them to say, oh, you know what? We've looked at this box a lot. Oh, that's right. You need a made in China text right here on the. I guess that never occurred to the person or the team of people who saw this thing until it was, well, let's say, I don't know, 7 months too late. So I'm a little frustrated with Gun and Gun. I've been frustrated with Gun and Gun. I've hidden some of that frustration with Gun and Gun, but I have been patient. My patience are now out. At some point, you've got nothing left in the glass. My glass was full of patience. I'm out of patience. So, sorry, I just checked the chat. Let's see what's going on here. Fire Strike should be renamed to Saga now. Saga Strike. I like Operation Endless Saga way more. I just arrived in the stream and I already know what's going on. And isn't that something? Isn't that something, Af, that you already know what's going on? I need to take a drink. I wish this was booze. So, So that's what's up with that's what's up with Gun and Gun. Only only bad news for Gun and Gun. I should go back and count the number of episodes where I've had bad news to share about Gun and Gun. I think it's probably about 12 at this point. Okay, on to the game of the hour, and that is Picaresque Roman. Why is it the game of the hour, you ask? Well, that's because we delivered digital files this week. See what happens when we can deliver things on our own timeline and we're not hamstrung by freight shipping across the world and a manufacturing company across the world. We can actually get stuff out on time. And technically, we did deliver on time. We delivered pretty much at the latest moment possible those core rulebooks. We started delivering those digital, those PDFs of the core rulebooks for Picaresque Roman. I think it was about 7:00 on Halloween. On Halloween night. No, it couldn't have been 7:00. I was out trick-or-treating at 7. So it was somewhere between 4 and 6, I suppose, because I was getting ready to go out trick-or-treating with my kids. So I mentioned, I think in last week's episode or the week before, that I would probably push it to the very last moment to deliver those PDFs on time. Well, I delivered them on time. And I snuck in at just about 5 hours before the deadline, before the clock turned over, and it was November 1. So now we continued to deliver various digital copies of the scenario booklet, GM booklet, and soundtrack throughout the next day and Tuesday and last night. But hey, we got that core rulebook out on time, as we said we would. So Picaresque Roman is out in the wild. Seems like people have liked it, which is cool. I think it's a great product. I think it's our best product. I think it's my favorite product thus far. I hope people are liking it. I'm not sure if anyone's actually played a game yet. I've seen a lot of people in Discord asking questions about rules and whatnot, and it seems like a lot of people in Discord have read the book, but I'm not sure anyone's actually played it yet. Which would make sense because books just delivered Sunday night on Halloween night. It's only Wednesday. You can't do a lot of prep in that amount of time to get a game running. I think I did see someone in chat say they're going to be running some games either this weekend or early next week. Our very own Churcher has volunteered to run a game. I think he said November 8th, but I'm not going to hold him to that because that was at least a week ago, but maybe a couple weeks ago, and we're coming up on November 8th pretty quickly, and I haven't heard from him. So we are going to be running some community games, though, and that's exciting. But yeah, so it's out there. All of our products, all of our Picaresque Roman products are out there with the exception of the info card set, which is coming via PDF. That would have been delivered already, but we're running into a weird exporting issue with those cards where we're getting this, it's about a quarter of an inch, maybe a little bit less than that, of a white line along the right side of the cards, and we can't seem to get rid of it for some reason. We've exported through multiple ways, and it's still there, which is strange. Now we have two exports of that file. One has the cut lines and one doesn't have the cut lines. So the file with the cut lines is fine, and we could put that up on DriveThruRPG and send that out to people. But I kind of wanted the one without the cut lines to go out. But that's the one that does have that weird white line that we can't resolve, and I don't know what that is because I've never run into that, and Winona's never run into that. So we've been trying to figure that shit out for 3 days now. I suspect we'll get it sorted out this week. It's kind of a whatever the issue is sort of eluding us. Strange, but pretty much. So everything is out there other than that, and of course the dice and the dice tray and the hardcover copies are the physical rewards that we have to fulfill. But that won't be until early next year. So everything that can be out there is out there with the exception of that info card set, which is fun. This has been a long time coming. This has been a lot of years of work in the making. And I'm really happy that we were able to pump out 3 books and a killer soundtrack. A lot of people have mentioned the soundtrack, which, by the way, a little fun fact here, we had the highest attachment rate for Picaresque Roman's soundtrack than any of our previous soundtracks before. So, and by like a wide margin. So prior to Picaresque Roman, we did a soundtrack for Testament and we did a soundtrack for Wild Hunt Festival. Testament soundtrack was shockingly kind of high, and it was the encouragement and validation I needed to continue to produce soundtracks for our games. But shockingly high for something that you assumed would be shockingly low doesn't necessarily mean that you had like huge people turning out to also pick up a copy of your soundtrack. But still, it was a pleasant surprise that as many people picked up the Testament soundtrack as they did. So we went ahead with Wild Hunt Festival, made that soundtrack. Even more people picked up the soundtrack for Wild Hunt Festival. I think our attach rate for the Wild Hunt Festival soundtrack was at around 40%. I think for Testament it was around 25 or 30%. So like we jumped up pretty significantly with Wild Hunt Festival, and that makes sense because the Wild Hunt Festival soundtrack is significantly better than the Testament soundtrack. Not that I don't like the Testament soundtrack. I quite like it, but I like the style of Wild Hunt Festival just way more. I worked more closely with the composer. It was a different composer for Wild Hunt Festival than Testament, even if the composer, here's a fun fact, the composer of Wild Hunt Festival soundtrack is the assistant to the composer of Testament soundtrack. So the Testament composer is a Hollywood composer. He just did the soundtrack for the new Aquaman animated film that's coming out. It's my cousin Matt. His assistant, Gio, was the one who did the Wild Hunt Festival soundtrack. When Gio finished up the Wild Hunt Festival soundtrack, I said, "Hey, we're working on this game called Picaresque Roman. Here's what it is. Would you be interested in composing the soundtrack for that as well?" And he was like, "Matt's keeping me crazy busy now that the Hollywood was in the middle to end of 2020 was beginning to kind of like pick back up, and shooting was beginning again, and post-production was getting back in session. So Gio was like, "Matt's keeping me super busy. We're busy with movies. I'd love to, but I just don't have the time. I could maybe commit to like one track, but that's if you want me to just do one track. And that's also if you want me to do it later on down the line or whatever, because I can't do it right now." So I'm like, okay. Long story short, we did not end up doing Picaresque Roman next. We did Embryo Machine next. Stuff opened up in Gio's schedule. Gio did the soundtrack for Embryo Machine. I'm like, hey, this works out. So at the end of Embryo Machine, I'm like, hey, remember that game Picaresque Roman? Well, I still want to compose a soundtrack for that. Are you open? He's like, this time I'm absolutely not open, and I know I'm not open because I just finished up the last track for Embryo Machine, and I was doing that at night because I've got all this scoring to take care of throughout the day. So no, I definitely can't do it. Again, get a hold of me. Like in a couple months, I might be able to give you one track or something. I'm like, well, do you have anyone that, I need to get to this now. It takes a long time to compose soundtracks, especially as picky as I am. I was like, do you have anyone who could compose this, who you would trust to compose this soundtrack? I'm looking for someone who sort of has your same style and has your same take on things and asks the same questions that you ask. And that's when he gave me to D'Anthony. So, and then D'Anthony and I connected. By the time that D'Anthony and I connected, Picaresque Roman had been pushed again, and Midnight Saga was going to take its place. So D'Anthony and I made the Midnight Saga main theme. Midnight Saga got pushed back. We transitioned over to Picaresque Roman. He fell in love with the whole like jazz hop kind of funk sound of Picaresque Roman soundtrack, and like immediately we had a meeting. We had a random meeting, I think, on a Friday night. Like the next day, he had gotten me something. He was like so enthused about Picaresque Roman, and so we got through with the Picaresque Roman soundtrack. I ended up reaching out to Gio again, saying, "Hey, you said to contact you. You want to write one track for this?" He was like, "Yeah, sure. Tell me about the track. What do you want it to be?" So I gave him a bunch of Yakuza references, and so his track, Gio's track, is Nemesis, and the rest of the soundtrack is D'Anthony's. And you can tell, Nemesis sounds different pretty significantly than all of Gio's tracks, but it was cool to have like that much of a contrast between the tracks, especially because all the other tracks kind of flow together. You can tell they all come from the same cloth. And then there's Nemesis, and it's like, oh, this is like rock, metal. This sounds very different. The recording quality is also different. I mean, it's a great recording quality, but you can just tell like mixing and mastering, D'Anthony and Gio do things differently. So that's a little fun trivia. All to say that the attach rate for Picaresque Roman was our highest yet at almost 70%, which is nuts for a soundtrack for a tabletop RPG. That is just bonkers good. So for our future TRPGs, we'll be producing soundtracks, hopefully, assuming our licensors allow us to. Some people are a little iffy about that, or they're like, you want to produce a soundtrack for a tabletop game? Please tell me how that works exactly, and please tell me who is buying that. Now I could say, well, 70% of our backers bought that. How's that for you? I can't remember what the attach rate for Embryo Machine soundtrack was. I think it was right around Wild Hunt festivals. I think it may have been like slightly higher, but nothing significantly so. Not significant enough, clearly, for me to even remember. So the difference must have been pretty negligible. But still, having around the attach rate of Wild Hunt Festival, I thought was impressive. And then Picaresque Roman just kind of blew me away. So I'm glad people are excited about the soundtrack. I dropped the soundtrack cover in Discord and threw it up on the Picaresque Roman Resources website because someone did reach out to me through Facebook Messenger and was like, hey, I would love to have like the cover art for this to go along with it on iTunes. Can you give it to me? And I was like, you know what? If one person's asking for this, I bet there's at least another person who would want this. So there we are. Anyway, I didn't come here to talk about a TRPG soundtrack. I came here to talk about a TRPG, and that is Picaresque Roman, and people seem to dig it. We are going to be issuing an update for the book. We've got a handful of updates that we're going to be making to the book, some stylistic things. In fact, they're all, if I remember correctly, they're all stylistic things, like things that were missed in formatting, minus like two things. One was the politician's side gig description was missing the by two number, the value. So you had no idea what your, like how that and how much that skill was going to help you, because it didn't tell you how much it was going to help you. So we were missing that value. That was probably the biggest faux pas. The rest were like, we were missing a paragraph break. We were missing bolding like a name in the replay. It was mostly, other than the politician side gig description, everything else was in the replay, which totally makes sense. It is way easier to proofread for errors a rule book than it is to proofread dialogue. And I say that because when you're proofreading a rule book reads like a technical manual. So your mind doesn't naturally fill in gaps because you don't read technical manuals all day. Most people don't read technical manuals all day. However, almost everyone talks all day or reads dialogue all day, whether it's through Discord, through a book, through social media, through some kind of messaging app. We're always reading dialogue, right? And so our brain gets so used to and accustomed to reading dialogue that when there's something missing in a bit of dialogue text, your brain just naturally fills it in because it knows what it's supposed to say, because we as people communicate all the time. That's natural. And so you miss things more easily when you're trying to edit dialogue than you do when you're trying to edit some kind of technical writing, because technical writing is not natural. And so you're way more discerning. Your eyes pick up way more because you're reading every single word, because you have to, because technical manuals are fairly foreign to the brain. Dialogue, not foreign to the brain. You just gloss over things, and if you miss something, your brain fills in the gap where it's supposed to be, and you never even realize that you're missing, let's say, a word, or you're missing a space, or you're missing a bolded name in the replay. I mean, so it's like, you know, the replay is where all these, I won't say all these issues because there's a handful. That's not all. That's all these issues implies a ton. A handful, I don't think is a ton. But that's where the issues have been, is in that damn replay. So curse you, replay. But I'm glad that people have been finding the replay to be helpful. Replays are there. So replays sort of serve two purposes in Japanese TRPGs. The primary purpose is to illustrate how the game actually looks and plays like in a real session. You can read all day about a game through a manual, but until you see it or until you do it yourself, the rules don't make complete sense. You can only wrap your mind around rules so much when you're just reading about how a game runs as opposed to being a part of that game running. The replay is really cool, and I wish I wish it was something that Western designers developed more often, Western publishers. The replay gives you a chance to see it actually play out, and it answers a lot of the questions that you would naturally have the first time you played. So it allows you to go into your first session way more prepared, especially if you're a GM. You can go in and you've seen how this actually plays out based on the replay, because a replay is a live transcription of an actual play session. And so you've got their, concrete sort of supporting information, supporting data, supporting text to complement the actual technical text of the rulebook proper. So that's the primary reason that a replay exists. But the other reason that a replay exists is people love light novels in Japan, right? And so a lot of designers see TRPG replays as a light novel, which not a lot of people know that that's part of the appeal of replays for Japanese designers, but it is. And so that replay serves two purposes, and they're two purposes that we just don't see a lot of, or if ever, in the Western world when it comes to designing a Western-based TRPG. So I'm glad that people have recognized the merit of that replay being there, and have even voiced through Discord and other places how much it's been helpful for them to digest, internalize, and fully understand, or at least as fully as you can understand rules for a game you haven't played yet. And I think that's cool. I'm excited to offer more replays. We'll continue to offer replays in all of our Japanese TRPGs. I'm never going to cut replays out of a book. So yeah, I'm glad people have liked the book overall. Some people have remarked on how strong the theming is, which I think is pretty cool for a game that is relatively short. I mean, this is the Picaresque core rulebook is 140 pages, a little bit longer for the Rogue edition, which will only be showing in physical form. But so it's a short book. And that means there's only so much room for theming to take place for you to really like paint the picture of your world. And yet I think Picaresque Roman really makes the most of the space that it has. It doesn't waste words a lot, which is awesome. And it wants to explain and illustrate its world as much as possible in as concise a language as possible. And from that 140 pages, like a decent little chunk of that is the replay. So that means that the book has even less time to paint the picture of its world fully. But I really feel like when you go into your first game of Picaresque Roman, whether you're a player or a GM, like you have a pretty good understanding of what the city is. And I think adding the additional lore on the city and adding the new factions really, really helped round out the book as well. So it was cool to read the book before those things made it in there, and then to read the book after those things made it in there. It just really felt like a complete product then. So I'm very happy that we were able to add that through unlocks, stretch goals, that is. So yeah, we're going to be issuing that update through DriveThruRPG probably by Friday. We did end up going through DriveThruRPG instead of through Pledge Manager. We had feedback that people wanted the game through DriveThruRPG to sort of add to their DTRPG digital collection of books, and I totally understand that. And at the same time, my concerns about DriveThruRPG ended up being dissolved shortly after I wrote that update about maybe using Pledge Manager, when I was able to talk to someone about some concerns that I had about the DriveThruRPG delivery service. They answered my questions and made me feel at ease. And I said, you know what, people already want this, and the concerns that I had are no longer concerns, is now that I was able to get the answers that I was looking for. I had already reached out to DriveThru a couple times and didn't really get the answers I was looking for, and that kind of steered me away from them. But whoever I talked to on that particular day really like understood what I was trying to get at, clarified things for me, cleared up my concerns, and I said, fuck it, let's just do DriveThruRPG. And I'm glad we did, because it makes updating things really easy once you learn its systems. It's a little obtuse and it's a little obtuse, to say the least. But once you learn its archaic backend as the administrator, it's fine. And I think it makes things easier. So I'm really happy. It feels great to be able to get those digital rewards out of the way and to get the feedback that we gotten on it, because that's going to inform us on the changes that we need to make for the update and then for the final version and the print version of the book, the hardcover copies. So I feel really good about Picaresque Roman. I'm really excited about the scenario booklet as well. Hopefully people have read through those, or at least if you're a GM, hopefully you've read through those. Maybe not read through those if you don't plan on GMing and you plan on having a GM that utilizes those scenarios right out of that book. Maybe you don't read that because it could spoil some things for you. I like that we gave the scenario booklet a name. So for the longest time, it was just going to be called scenario booklet. That's what it was going to be called. And then I decided, you know what, this thing needs a name. I went through a couple iterations. I kind of came down to calling it the Rise and Fall scenario booklet or the Hard Time scenario booklet, and bounced that idea off a couple people, and unanimously everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Hard Times, that's the one." And so Hard Times made a lot of sense based on what the city is. You know, living in the city is not easy. It's not easy at all. It is, in fact, hard times. It was also a slight callback to Dusty Rhodes. If you're a professional wrestler, professional wrestling connoisseur, then you might know the American Dream Dusty Rhodes and his infamous, his most famous, I should say, promo, which was called Hard Times. Kind of a callback to that as well. I like to sneak in obscure references to things that I like in random spots and the things that I work on. I typically don't tell anyone what those things are, and I just see if people recognize them. I have snuck in subtle references like that in everything that I've ever worked on, like every project dating back to Clannad. So there is a reference in Clannad that I don't think anyone has ever asked me about, but there's something in there. And ever since then, I have made sure that I've included some kind of reference. Usually it's a pro wrestling reference. It's usually a pro wrestling reference. And Hard Times, although the primary reason for calling it Hard Times was because it made thematic sense, I couldn't help but think of Dusty Rhodes promo when I thought of Hard Times, and that's probably where that wording came from in my mind. Hard Times. To be honest, it was probably something subconscious. Anyway, so we gave it that name. I'm glad we did, and we are going to be updating the GM book. Someone made a good point. You know, it's funny when you're working on this stuff and you've been working on it since 2019, like you're so close to all of this that you stop seeing stuff. And I've said that many times when I've talked about the woes of localization, is you get so close to the work that you're working on, especially if it's a long, big project, that you just stop seeing things after a while. You miss obvious stuff. And one of the things that is obvious that wasn't obvious until someone pointed it out, then it became obvious. We didn't include any information on the side gig effects in the GM book. So we included like the rundown of all of the main gigs, but we included nothing about the side gigs. And someone in the chat said like, hey, I think this was a missed opportunity. They also said something else was a missed opportunity. I didn't agree with that, but I did agree with the side gigs part. Or maybe I did agree with both of the things. I can't quite remember now, but we definitely included the side. We're going back and we're reworking in the side gig descriptions for that GM booklet. So we are going to update both of those books. We won't be updating Hard Times because there's nothing to update there. It's fine. But the core rulebook and the GM rulebook are getting updated. The GM rulebook only getting updated with more content. And then I think we have somewhere between 5 and 7 things to correct. Some errors. Again, usually formatting errors in the core rulebook. So y'all will be taken care of there, and you'll get a nice, hopefully perfect printed copy of the game with no errors. I'm sure there's an error somewhere in there. These games are just too big. That's the thing. Like, you never want to have to like errata stuff, and you never want to like catch errors in something that you've already submitted to people, even if you can go back, you can update it. But like, these games are so damn big, and our LionWing is so small. that you only have so many eyes ever on one product, you're going to miss stuff. Like, that's just the way it is. This project was, I mean, exponentially, and even that is underselling it and is an understatement. It's exponentially larger than anything we've ever done. It's larger than all of our previous projects combined, and then some, and quite a lot some, should I say. So I was not surprised that there were a couple things in there. I'm actually fairly impressed that there's only a handful of errors in there, and none of them are actual like misspellings. That's the thing that always worries me. I mean, of course, you always want to present the most perfect product that you can, but like at the end of the day, if we shipped and there was like a name that wasn't bolded or a line space that wasn't there, like it would drive me nuts because I'm the one who does my company stuff. But like at the end of the day, it's like, oh, who gives a fuck? But it's like the typos that really get me, or like a misprint in a rule or something. Oh, those aren't so great. So like we had that one where we missed the value for the politician side gig description. Like that's the stuff you want to see. Nothing like that at all, or the absolute minimum of those types of errors. Then the other stuff like missing a line break, not great. But what can you do? What we can do is we can fix it, update it, get it to y'all, and make sure that it's fixed for the print copy. So I'd rather have these issues than some of the other issues that you could have in these situations, especially with a project this size. Okay, so that's Picaresque. Really excited, and we will keep people updated with regards to where we're at with the printing status of things, getting our production samples. I'm really excited to get the production samples, primarily of the Rogue Edition. I'm really excited about that. I am a little anxious because, as I shared in the Embryo Machine update earlier this week, I am a bit of a perfectionist, especially now that we had that issue with Wild Hunt Festival's plastic cards. Plastic. Fucking ridiculous that they said that was plastic. So I'm very picky, and if there's going to be one component that slows down the process that I like send notes back on and then want a revised production sample, it's going to be on that Rogue Edition. Everything else I think will be pretty cut and dried. I don't suspect I'll send back any notes for the standard hardcover, nor will I send back notes for the dice or the dice tray, especially because we've done the dice and the dice tray thing before. We know exactly what we're doing there. So it'll probably be that Rogue tier, just because there are a couple moving parts, so to speak, that need to look a very specific way. The gilded edges being one of the things, and of course the foil stamping on the cover, and just the quality of the faux leather itself. So there are some things, those are a few aspects of the Rogue Edition that could go sideways, that slow things down, that require me to say, you know what, let's try that one again, send me something new, let's see if we can get it to where I want it to be. But my fingers are crossed that what the printer sends me is exactly what I want, and we'll be good to go. They pretty much did that with Wild Hunt Festival, minus the coin. We had to go back and forth on getting that first player marker worked out. But other than that, things were fine until I realized that the plastic character cards were not what I was told and shown they were in the pictures. That's what you get for never. Lesson was learned that you always get a physical product, even if the printer tells you it's too expensive to print a physical product based on the component that you're printing that physical product on. So, lesson learned there. Other than that, things are going well with Picaresque. I'm glad that people will at least be able to get to play the game now. So, I am excited. I know someone in chat said they were going to do some sort of Twitch coverage of the book. They and someone else were going to go through the book. It was cool that they asked me if it was okay to do that kind of thing. And of course I'm going to say yes. Cause that's awesome. I love when people care enough about something we produce to create content for it. And at the same time, if I say no, don't do that, they could just easily be like, okay, and then go do it anyway, or say, go fuck yourself, we're gonna do it anyway. So of course I was gonna say yes for many reasons, but it was cool that they at least reached out and asked. The community around Picaresque has been super cool. Even folks in the chat who have given us feedback on things that they thought should have been included in certain places, or on the handful of errors that were found. Everyone's been really nice about it. I think someone felt bad earlier tonight for giving me feedback on like a couple of the errors. They were like, sorry if I sounded harsh. I'm like, you didn't sound harsh. You're just being helpful. Like, I appreciate this kind of thing. Our team's so small that we can only ever catch, so many things. So it's kind of, that's a real boon of having a digital product, or a product that can come out digitally before you get the physical copy, is you sort of have like beta testers. I don't think of it as that way, but it's kind of what it's turning into, which has been an interesting experience because we've never had that opportunity before. So I'm happy with where we're at with Picaresque. On to Embryo Machine. So I just posted an update for Embryo Machine a couple days ago, a little later than I wanted to. But still, posted an update there, and just not a lot of movement there. The printer's been slow. We're in a queue to get our production samples. I wish I had more info to go on there, other than we extended the scenario contest. I think someone asked about the scenario contest in Discord. I have been a little distracted this week, so I haven't been as closely monitoring Discord as I have been the past couple weeks. But I did see someone ask some questions about it, though I think it was cleared up. Af and a couple other people jumped in and answered that individual's questions. At least I think they did. I hope they did. So, I mean, things are going fine there. It's just slow. It's just slow. I wish it was faster, but I posted that update basically saying we're going to miss our December target, and like everyone was so freaking cool about it. So it's always I'm always super appreciative when people like, they get that bad news and then they're like, you know what, it's fine. Like, I'd rather the game be good and get to us eventually than you rush it and get it to us in a state that it shouldn't be in. So if you're out there and you're watching this and you're part of the Embryo Machine community, and you were one of the commenters who were super cool about it, or you were thinking what the commenters were thinking but just didn't post it, thank you. You all are awesome. That game is very complicated. There's so many components to that game, and they're all pretty weird. So it's just going to take a little bit of time to get down. We haven't worked with components like this before. We weren't really anticipating the problems that came up in the back and forth when we were sending our stuff in for DTP checks. But you live, you learn. And we've lived, and now we've learned, and slowed things down, and then we're slowed down even more by the holidays and slowed down even more by the pandemic. But Embryo Machine will get here. We're excited about it. Just taking a little bit of time. And that's all that I got on projects, other than to say we're probably going to be revealing the code name of the next project at the end of this month. So I don't have a hard date because I'm tired of giving hard dates and then having to walk those dates back. But I'm hoping the end of November. Maybe it gets pushed to the early part of December, but I think we'll be good enough to put that code name out there. So that's exciting. The next project is not Midnight Saga. I wanted it to be, but as I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, it's just too big a game right now to print, too heavy a game, too expensive a game to print and to ship. So want to pump the brakes. It's coming because I put a lot of money into that game. So it's coming. And it'll be ready when it needs to be ready. In fact, it's ready. But when I say it'll be ready when it needs to be ready, I kind of mean it'll be ready when the market decides it's ready for a game like Midnight Saga to be printed and shipped reasonably. That's it for project updates. And we just have one question in the chat this week. It came to me like 10 minutes before the show went live. It was from Aiken, who I haven't seen in a while. Hey, Aiken, nice to hear from you. And they said, don't know if you're doing LionWing Talks tonight, but if you are, what non-Japanese IP would you like to use to make a game? Now, that's an interesting question. I only ever talk about Japanese IPs that I would like to use to make a game. So what non-Japanese IP would I like to use to make a game? Now, this was especially interesting because I had no time to think about this because it was sent in so late. So I first got to think about non-Japanese IPs that I like. I know there are. I like plenty of non-Japanese IPs. Apparently I don't like enough. Think, Bradley, think. Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I would like to do something with, something's already been done with it. So like the Aliens RPG, I would have loved to have done something like that. Since Aliens is one of my favorite media franchises. I had thoughts of reaching out about licensing for it's funny, for a G.I. Joe TRPG. Someone beat me to that one. Okay, so a couple that come to mind. Yeah, a couple that come to mind. First, Wing Commander. I think doing something with Wing Commander would be cool. I like Wing Commander a lot. I think Wing Commander's universe, its politics, its narrative, its characters, its setting is all tailor-made for a board game, and more specifically a tabletop RPG. So that would definitely be one, Wing Commander. Hell, I think that'd probably be the first one. Some other things. Crimson Skies, that'd be cool. I'd like to do something with Crimson Skies. I think you can make, again, a really cool tabletop RPG out of Crimson Skies. They've already made a miniatures game out of Crimson Skies. Oh, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, so I wouldn't want to like retread that. But you could, that setting is so cool, that like diesel punk setting, alternate history, 1930s setting would be super, super cool for a tabletop RPG. The problem there is sort of like Wing Commander. It's such an old property and it hasn't been around in so long that the new generation has never played it, or worse, has never heard of it. The old generation may not be the people who would show up for a tabletop game of any kind, and so you might struggle to find an audience. I think Wing Commander has enough of a legacy behind it that people would turn out for that. Crimson Skies was, it was an started off as an obscure arcade with sim elements game on PC. Mostly is known for its Xbox game that came out in like 2003 or whatever that was. Crimson Skies, High Road to Revenge. That game was huge for its day. It was huge for Xbox Live, but that time has come and gone. Although it is an Xbox backward compatibility title, and I think it even has like some fancy like FPS boost stuff to it. But still, most people haven't played that. Let's think. What else is cool? What is that? Hold on. I'm blanking on the name. Let me look it up real quick. There we go. The Falconeer. So The Falconeer was one of my favorite games of last year. Yeah, 2020, because it was an Xbox Series launch title. Falconeer, it's like part Star Fox, part Crimson Skies, part Panzer Dragoon. It's a Western property made by one dude. That would be that setting is really cool. I think anything where you're riding giant things makes for a fun time. I would love to make a Panzer Dragoon tabletop RPG, primarily because riding giant dragons sounds like heckin' fun. So the Falconeer would be cool. Like, of course, like a Halo tabletop RPG would be fun. There's so much lore there. You could do a lot of fun stuff with that. I think you could do something fun with the Eternal Champions IP, which was a Sega of America fighting game for the Genesis and then the Sega CD, and then it just kind of disappeared. That would be really cool, I think. Yeah, so I don't know. Those things come to mind. I mean, of course, like, I'm surprised this hasn't happened yet, though I'm sure one of the larger companies out there will pick it up. A Predator RPG would be amazing. Would be really amazing. The Thing RPG would be really amazing. Although you could turn The Thing into an awesome board game as well. You could turn Predator into an awesome board game as well, but I'm just thinking about RPGs because it tends to be what I want to play in my free time. But a lot of my stuff, yeah, a lot of like the properties that I would want to work with are from the Japanese video game world. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Aiken. That's going to be a question I think about often. And I'm going to come back like in various LionWing talks, be like, hey, remember that one question? I thought about that some more. Yeah, this would be a cool property to do something with. So, okay. Well, that takes us to the end tonight. Got in about 50 minutes, so a little bit shorter than last week, as I suspected. So thanks everyone for checking out Picaresque Roman. We are going to be sending out Wave 2 of the digital copies. If you did not get your copy this first go around and you complete your Pledge Manager order by this coming Sunday at 4 p.m., you will be included in the Wave 2 distribution of those PDFs. So go ahead, fill out your Pledge Manager order, finish it up. You can always go back and change it, even if you complete it and you get your digital files and you're like, you know what, I really want to go back and I want to add those dice or I want to upgrade to the Rogue Edition or whatever. Like, you can still do that. Just go ahead and lock your order in now at least. That way you can get the game and get playing. So if you missed out this past week and you're like, oh my gosh, all these other people got their games, because almost 600 people got their PDF files. But if you were in the minority of folks who did not get your files, fret not, because you still have a chance. You have until Sunday. And those who miss out on Wave 2 can get into Wave 3, and those who miss out on Wave 3 can get into Wave 4. And there probably will come a time, when I just shoot it out to everyone, especially if people haven't locked their orders by the time like the physical products arrive. That's when you'll probably be the very last ones to get your digital files. So, but thanks everyone for checking out Picaresque Roman, for talking so highly of it, for chatting about it in Discord, for being excited, for wanting to run games, for asking questions, for helping find, little errors here and there. All of that is appreciated. I love the enthusiasm. That's always the best feedback, honestly, that you can give someone, is just showing your excitement for the thing that you've got, that you paid for, and that you just received. And so it's been great to see the Picaresque Roman channel in Discord really come to life. That's been very exciting. I know it had been quiet in the Discord for a while just because we didn't have a lot going on, because we were waiting for like projects. And now that that's hit, people are talking about that. I hope people will continue to talk about that. And I definitely want to do more with Picaresque Roman in the future. We'll see if that pans out. But that's it for this show. We'll be doing this again probably next week. I have toyed around with the idea of dropping this down to an every other week show, just because we are at a stage where the project updates come a little more slowly based on where in the production queue each of these projects are. And so therefore it might make more sense to let 2 weeks elapse before talking about them, because therefore I might have more to say on each of these projects. Haven't quite decided on that. But we'll be back again, if not next week, the following week, here, Wednesday, 9 p.m. ET on Twitch. If you want to check us out on social, check us out at LWing Publishing. That's the handle across the board: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can check us out on Discord, and you can find our Discord by going to our website at LionWingPublishing.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. I never promote that damn newsletter, and I really should. I promote it through our Pledge Manager, and I give everyone an option when they're completing their Pledge Manager to sign up for the newsletter if you want. We never spam people. Like, we rarely send anything unless it's about an upcoming project or something important. So if you're like, I don't want to sign up for a newsletter because I don't want that shit crossing my inbox and I want to have to see it, you really won't ever see it until it might be an important thing about a project that gets you excited, because it might be a project similar to the one that you backed that led you to the newsletter in the first place. So maybe give that a check. I don't promote that enough, and I probably should. But you can find that newsletter on our website or on the Embryo Machine Pledge Manager or the Picaresque Roman Pledge Manager, because that's when we started including that. Do you want to sign up for the newsletter option in those two projects specifically? But you can always just go to our website and you can sign up there at the bottom. And we've also got a resources page now for various games, but primarily for Picaresque Roman. If you need additional resources, printable, editable character sheets, soundtrack cover, action summaries, etc., that's there. I'll continue to update that as necessary. We've got our FAQ section for our other games there. If you need to get your questions answered about One Hunt Festival or Testament or what have you, you can check it out on the website as well. I don't promote the website a lot either, but it's there, and it's a sleek website. Go check it out. And we got our web store there. If you missed any of our previous games, you can grab them right from our web store. And we are going to be running a holiday sale in our web store. So if you haven't picked up one of our past games that's already released, you might be able to get in on the cheap, not Picaresque Roman, but maybe some other projects might have a discount. Some accessories might have a discount. Some accessories might show up even. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But we do have a web store, so check that out if you want to. You can also pre-order a lot of our games through the web store. So it's another option where you can just find that project's late pledge option. You can sort of pre-order / late pledge there through the pledge manager of that particular game as well. So somehow I just talked for like 5 minutes straight about plugs. And I don't plug a whole lot. And that's probably why it took me 5 minutes to get through it all. I'm winded, I'm tired, I'm thirsty, and I'm done for tonight. So until next time, I'm Bradley Hailstorm. I will see you then.